Hello everyone, this was the final achievement for me in terms of the first chapter of Apocalypse, and in this video I'm gonna show you guys how I did the Servitude duo. Beforehand, as I was researching different people's videos, what I realized was none of the videos currently on YouTube have the current starting positions as the one I do. And maybe that's a trivial difference, but it actually affected the first few turns a lot, which is the most crucial ones. And so it took me a lot of tries, I think over 100, to figure this out. And in this video, first I will talk about the general strategy, and then I'm gonna talk about the things that I messed up quite a lot of times. I'm gonna share these so that you don't need to spend hours trying to fix them. And lastly, the final bits and details. In terms of items, I had the classic tank Panda set and the classic 12-6 agility rogue set. And throughout my tries, I tried many different builds. I used the Panda class belt for its effects. I used strength rogue, 11-6 agility rogue, intelligence rogue, the legendary cape that gives 10% spell damage, all of that. But I mean, at the end this worked, and the reason why I'm listing these it's not that crucial, because the general mechanics and getting the positions right is a lot more important, because as long as you're generally a tank Panda, you will stay alive, and that's the goal for the Panda. And as long as you have a decent set, or semi-decent even, you will have enough damage. Because I know there are some videos out there where they do the all 25,000 health of the boss in one turn, but you don't need to do that. In the method that I did it, once only you and the boss are left, you can just stall the game and slowly chip the boss down to the second phase mark and then finish it off. A couple important parts of the item sets is that you just want maximum damage with the rogue. So in this set you can see that I have almost 200 air damage, I have 1200 agility, I used the 100 power minus 200 vitality candy, I had the Vulbis for the final damage if I wasn't hit, and all that. And for the Panda, as you can see that you don't really need luck in this dungeon, so I switched out some of the trophies. I used the Dokoko, which turned out to be really helpful since it's a really long fight and you have a very high base health. And the Lady Jessica belt is also really useful because, especially in the last turns, the Panda is always in contact with the boss, so the 10% damage reduction is very helpful. And the Dragaturkey actually doesn't really matter, it was just the one that I had. I needed some initiative to play before my rogue, so it gives the initiative that I need, and at the same time it gives agility, which gives luck, but it's not really needed, so perhaps a higher vitality pet or more resistances might be more useful in your case. The armor screens hit in intelligence damage, and I had around 46% fire resistance with my Exo Mages, but if you don't have those, maybe you can use a 400 vitality plus 10% fire resistance pet to hit 50% on the fire resistance, but that's up to you, because survival is very important in this dungeon. The general strategy is pretty similar with all the other videos you can find. The main goal is to get the rogue on a safe place and start building your bomb line, and everything should come to you. And those like turns 3 to 6 are the most crucial, because in those turns, if you don't kill enough enemies, you will be outnumbered and it will get really tough. And at the same time, you can't really rush and just let everything come to you, which would make them easier to kill them, because then you would get too much damage and you will die. So in this video you'll see that I try to, the first turn is really important, but afterwards, once you get behind the wall, I will try to build my bomb line as soon as possible as the enemies are coming to me. And every turn, of course, you want to hit the armor screens to avoid having the army of Iops summoning around, which is not terribly bad because I opted into killing the armor screens. I have seen some videos where you completely ignore the summons and just finish boss on turn 7. I obviously didn't do that, my fight is a lot longer, but that's your personal choice. I feel like it's a lot easier to just start killing them off once you have the bomb line ready instead of dealing with them. One important point is, it is very useful to have a barrel on the other side of the bomb line to pull enemies in. And The first turn, actually like the second turn, is the best turn to summon that and get it in the right place, because beyond that you will have so much to deal with, you won't have enough AP or you'll be in the right position to summon the barrel. So I highly suggest that you summon the barrel on turn 2 and place it, because afterwards you can just throw stuff into it and it will grab them in, so it will be a lot easier to kill the other enemies. Only one of the enemies play in between my characters, and this is a problem because, for example, with the other two, my Panda can throw them in the bomb line, and then it will be my rogue's turn again, so I can move them in the bomb line to hit them a second time, and on their turn they will be hit for a third time and they'll die. So this means that I need to hit around 2,500-3,000 per hit, which is doable. But with the guy that plays in between my characters, I need to down it in 2 hits, otherwise it will hit my characters or maybe kill a bomb, etc. And so in order to make it easier for me to kill him, you'll see that in the first turn I actually hit the monster twice with my rogue, and by doing that I do about 1,000 damage to it, and which makes it more doable to finish it off with just 2 hits. I also want to mention that specifically for my starting positions, about half of the time the army screens would move differently, which I initially thought was better because it was easier for my Panda to hit it, but it turned out to be worse because it just messed up all the starting positions and I just didn't got used to them. So whenever I had that starting position, I would just reset the fight after some point. And since everyone will have different starting positions, you know, you gotta look out for yourself and see how many different starting positions you have. My point is, you wanna streamline especially the first few turns, because if you're gonna try this dungeon 100 times, you need to get used to doing the perfect first few turns, and if the monsters are moving to different places every single time, it's gonna be really hard to set up such a thing. So I highly suggest that you keep track, you maybe record yourself and see where each monster is moving and if anything is changing that, and you want to keep those stable and same. Don't freak out if you have low health. I have gotten to this point with like 500 health on my Panda many times. It's fine because the boss doesn't do that much damage. At this point you should use Cavet Glyphs, Dokoko, etc. to heal yourself back up. And also the other thing is you need to start stacking the red stacks on both of your characters. And here's how this works. If both of you have a stack, you can hit each other to get more stacks. So once you're at that point, it's really easy. I would just hit Leak Pie twice to my Panda and get 2 stacks on my rogue. But in order to initially get the stacks on both characters, you need to end your turn on the white glyph that Servitude casts. So that might be tricky because since the glyph will be cast on your Panda, most likely, it means that your rogue will need to get close and get the end under the glyph to get the first stack. And in order to avoid getting huge amounts of damage or potentially dying with your rogue, at this point, you might use the bomb summon or maybe Panda Vesta, Schaefer, anything like that to keep yourself alive. That is what I did. And once you get your first stack, move back to safety and never ever reach 0 stacks again. Always hit Leak Pie twice to your Panda at every turn to keep your stacks high, especially when you're moving in to finish the boss. You want to have 5 full stacks. And lastly, I want to add, if your Panda is particularly in low health and you're in like survival mode, don't hit Leak Pie to your Panda because you will crack the Ivory Dofus shield, and that might be just enough damage to make your Panda die. So maybe for a couple turns you might not hit your Panda with the rogue or anything like that, and just wait until your Panda heals up. So at this point you have killed everything, your characters are healthy, you have your stacks, and you have your stacks on the rogue, and your bombs are big, and you're ready to kill the boss. At this step I have done so many mistakes, and it's so frustrating because it takes a lot of effort to get to this step and it sucks to fail when you're this close. So in here I'm actually gonna talk about 4 different situations where I messed up and how you can avoid them. And the first one is the phase change fail. So as you know, the bosses in the Eliocalypse patch have different phases indicated with the yellow health bars. And the thing is, when they change phases, they won't get any damage. So for example, if Servitude changes phases at 50% health, which he does, and he is at 51% health and you hit him 10,000, it will stop at 50% again. And this will cause you to lose a lot of damage. And in this clip you'll see that I actually detonate my bombs when he's still in the first phase, so all of that damage goes to waste. And so what was the fix for that? The fix is you wanna deal enough damage to the boss so that when the barrel first attracts the boss to the bomb line, or your panda throws it, anyhow, the boss should enter the second phase. The second fail that I did was I would mess up the bomb line and I would also incorrectly use fuse to detonate my bombs. So two things here. In this clip you'll see that I move the bomb first and then break and remake the line. So when I remake the line, there are only 2 bombs on the line, and that makes the boss take a lot less damage compared to having 3 bombs on the line. So what you need to do is first manipulate the line and then move the bomb on the back line next to the boss. This will give you at least 2,000-3,000 damage. And then the second thing is to detonate the bombs, you shouldn't use fuse. I used fuse because in the second turn, I used the extra AP in order to set my bomb line more correctly, but you can't use fuse because the fuse does not do damage with the bomb that you pressed on. You will only do damage with the other 2 bombs. And the third fail actually took me a couple tries to realize, and it was super frustrating, and it's the fact that the Panda spell, which causes the unhealable state, which is really useful because otherwise the boss will heal up and we will need to deal with that, also gives melee invulnerability. And I mistakenly thought that since the bombs were rogues, if the rogue wasn't in melee range to the boss, that I would do damage, but that is wrong. The bombs are doing the damage, so if you have bombs that are in melee range to the boss, they will actually do no damage. And in this clip you can see that 2 of my bombs are right next to the boss, so they basically do 0 damage. So that won't work. And fixing this was a little bit more tricky. What I had to do was, during those many turns where I'm, slowly damaging the boss and I'm healing back my panda, etc., I would move the bombs by using imposture over 2 turns. And lastly, this one was a bug that I still don't understand how it happened, but in this clip you can see that I do damage to the boss with the 5 ebony stacks on the rogue, so we know that the boss has the ebony poison, which I will also show later, and I correctly detonate my bombs and the boss actually goes down to 1 health, but the boss doesn't die. I don't know what caused it, but the poison basically wasn't doing any damage, and my rogue was at low health, so the Armiscreant's summon, that submissive IOP killed it off, and I had to basically restart the fight with 1 health on the boss, because the boss has a permanent 1000 point shield and my panda wasn't able to do enough damage. In the try that I actually killed the boss, the situation was exactly the same. The boss had 1 health, unhealable state, teleported back, and died from the ebony poison. I don't know why it didn't work on the other try, but if you know it, please tell me in the comments. But in either case, I was prepared this time, because in that try, I casted Last Breath on my rogue for extra damage just beforehand, which left my rogue with very little health, and that is why the summon was able to kill my rogue. This time I casted Last Breath couple turns beforehand, so my rogue's health was actually around 3,500 at this point. So even if the ebony poison didn't kill it, my rogue could easily finish the boss off since it only had 1,000 health left. I mean 1 plus 1,000 shield. So if this is happening to you, you can just try to keep your rogue's health higher and maybe a couple stacks left over and just finish the boss on the very next turn.